Hello and welcome to part 3 of how to make a passive speaker for your smartphone out of cardboard. So in part 1, just to recap, here's our speaker. Okay, it's made up of 3 parts: the top section, the middle section, and the bottom section. In part 1, we learned how to make the bottom section, which was simply a couple pieces of cardboard that we cut out that were a specific size, which were this size, 3.5 inches by 5 inches. Okay, we stacked them up, glued them together, and we came up with the bottom section. Then we made the top section in video 2. So video 2, same size pieces, 3.5 by 5. Okay, we took a few of them, we stacked them together so that they would be approximately a 1/2 inch thick, same as the bottom. And then we cut them out individually, and then we glued them together so that we could slide our phone in here so that it would fit nice and freely. Right in like that. Okay, we want a nice snug fit, but we don't want it to be getting too tight. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so here's the bottom, here's the top. What goes in the middle? So what goes in the middle, the actual amplification part, looks like this shape here. Okay, now I have a couple of them that I pre-cut. So what you do is you take the bottom section, you take these, you lay them on here. Now this opening right here, okay, is a little bit smaller than this opening that we cut in here. So when I lay this on top, my phone will go through this top section, and you'll see that it actually will stop right here. It will not go all the way to the bottom section. If it went all the way to the bottom section, what would happen is the speakers that are on the bottom of my phone here would be pressed up against this piece of cardboard like that, and then we wouldn't get any sound out. We need it to be resting above it so that the sound can come out. So that's why when we put these on here, when I put my phone on it, you can see that they do not fit through, right? So you have that gap at the bottom, and that's where all the sound is coming through, okay? So then we put the top section on it, like that, and then my phone sits in there like that, and that's the finished product. Okay, if you're looking at it from the side view, that front view like that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to make this middle section. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. We're going to take the top section that we made, and we're going to use this as a bit of a template. Okay, so we're going to cut a couple more pieces of cardboard, 3.5 by 5, same like we did in video 1, same as we did in video 2. If you go back to the part 1, it'll show you how to cut this size shape out. Okay, so you're going to need a couple of them that'll stack up to about a 1/2 inch thick. Okay, so in my case, I'm using 2 because of the thickness of my cardboard. Your cardboard may be a little bit thinner or a little bit thicker, so it needs to be about a 1/2 inch thick. Okay, so we're going to take one of them, and we're going to take our top layer, and I'm going to lay it on top of it like this, and I am just going to trace out that section right there. I need to find my pen. So we're going to trace out right here. So trace it out. And I end up with something that looks like that. Okay? Now, if I cut it that size, my phone's going to fall through and hit the bottom. I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come from the end right here, and I'm going to move in a little bit, maybe about a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to draw a line right there like that. So you'll see those 2 lines that I drew, right here and right here. So we are going to use the small rectangle in the middle. We are not cutting out these outside edges. So I'm going to cross those out. I'm going to just kind of darken them in. So we are not going to use those. Okay, that's how we're going to keep the phone from falling through. So we're going to use this section here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go from this corner here. I'll put a little dot there. We're going to go from this corner, and we're going to measure in this way 1 inch, and we're going to make a mark. So I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to measure in 1 inch like this. I'm going to make a mark right there. And then I'm going to do the same thing from the other side. I'm going to go from that corner and I'm going to measure in 1 inch, and I'm going to mark it. So if you look at this nice and close, so right from here, my new corner that I made, not from all the way on the outside, from this part right here, okay, right? I'm measuring 1 inch, and I'm marking it. And then I'm coming here and I'm marking it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from this point, and I'm going to just freehand draw a little arc out like this from point to the corner, just like that. I'm just going to freehand it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so I'm going to take it from here, and I'm going to just kind of freehand a little bit of an arc that comes out to the corner, and then I'm going to freehand an arc that comes out to that corner, something like that. Okay? Now there's a lot going on here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Sharpie and I'm going to outline where we're going to cut out for you, so it looks a little bit easier to cut out. Okay? So I'm going to use the Sharpie and let me just outline it for you so you can see what we are cutting. If you want to do this on your piece as well, might make it a little easier for you as well. Okay, so you can see there is our shape. Comes up, comes over, around, and back down. We are leaving these little shaded sections intact. We're not cutting those out. Okay, so we're going to take our scissors, and we're going to cut this bad boy out. So I'm going to start from the corner here. I'm going to cut right in. Nice and easy. Okay, nice and careful. I cut in from the other side. Just go nice and slow. There's no rush on the cutting. Accuracy is what counts. Okay, then I'm going to use my technique that I used from the top. I'm going to kind of poke a hole in here. Right, watch your fingers. And I'm going to cut along the top here. I'm going to cut this section out. Nice and careful. Going to do the same thing along the bottom here. When I poke the hole, I like to keep this laying against the ground here, not up in the air. Gives me a little bit easier access, and just watch your fingers. Do not poke yourself with the scissors. Okay, go nice and easy. Cut that out. All right, you can see it's starting to take shape. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go from this corner now. Watching my fingers, keep them out of the way. From the back here, right, when I'm poking through, keep my fingers way away from that. I don't want my fingers to get hit with the scissors when I poke it through. Okay, and I'm going to cut nice and easily. Now we're almost done here. We just have a little bit left. You can see I've almost cut it out. I just need to snip it on these two little sections here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this up a little bit like this. I'm going to snip it right there, and I'm going to snip it right here, like this. And get this middle piece out of the way. Now I just have to trim these little sections out, which is pretty easy. I'm actually going to turn it over, trim it up a little bit. That looks good. A little bit more trimming on this side. Almost got it. That looks good. Take this side, trim it a little bit. That side looks pretty good. Clean it up. And that looks pretty good. So if I turn it over, you can see that I have this nice shape here like that. All right? And then what you want to do is you want to take another piece of cardboard. All right, your next piece, lay it down, use that as a template, trace it out and cut it out. Okay, now I've already done that. I've already cut a couple of these. So I already cut two, right? So depending on the thickness of your cardboard, you might need 2, you might need 3, okay? Remember, it needs to add up to about a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch thick, okay? So in my case, I have 3, so I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna use 3. You might use 2. It really just depends on your cardboard. All right, so we're gonna hot glue these together real quick. So I'm just going to throw a little hot glue on here. Again, you don't have to go crazy with the glue. A little bit of glue on that one. Put this one over it, stick it down. little bit of glue on this one. Take my next layer, put it down, and we're looking pretty good here. All right, so that's part 3 right there on how to make the passive speaker. So now we have our 3 sections. We have our bottom section, we have our middle section, and we have our top section, which is right here, which goes on top, just like that. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is we need to, if you look at the one that's completed, we need to tape this middle section so that the sound projects forward. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece here, and all along this curved shape that I just cut out, I'm going to put Scotch tape on it. So I'm going to take my Scotch tape. Now remember, it's going to get sandwiched in between these 2 pieces, so your Scotch tape, you can be a little bit on the liberal side, which means you can put plenty of tape on it. So you can see I'm just taping it right across, all across this whole section. All right, so I'm just going to keep applying pieces of tape, taping it up, nice and slow, nice and steady. Okay, try to keep it as neat as possible. Make sure there are no gaps. It's okay to overlap the tape if you need to. Start putting some down here. You don't want to rush the taping because the tape is what's going to really be the difference between it sounding good and it not sounding good. If you do a good job with the tape and you really seal it off, that's when you're going to get some good sound. So if you make it and you're like, man, this doesn't sound that great, my guess would be that you need to go back and do a little more tape. Make sure that you sealed up all the different sections. That looks pretty good. That corner looks good. I'm going to trim that just a bit because I put a little overlap there. There we go. That looks great. Okay, we're going to put a little piece in here now. Make sure that you're getting this little section right in here. I don't know if you can see it. Right in here. Make sure that you get that sealed up. Right, this whole inside needs to get sealed up. Okay, so I'm just working my way around. Nice and slow and steady. Making sure I don't miss any spots. Go. Remember, don't be afraid to overlap the tape. You really want to make sure that those seams are nice and tight so that we don't let any sound escape. This is all about sound. Keeping the sound contained in this one area. Okay, that looks pretty good. Tape up my last little section and we'll be able to glue it together. So I'm just laying the tape over, you can see, and just kind of overlapping each little section, making sure that I don't miss anywhere. One more piece should do it. There we go. That looks good. So if you take a look at that, you can see that I've sealed this whole section all the way around, all the way through, around, sealed with tape. So now I'm going to take my bottom piece, okay, and I'm going to hot glue this right on. So I'll take a little hot glue. Hot glue that to my bottom piece. Turn it over, glue it down, make sure it's even. Hold it in place for a second. Oh, there goes the glue gun. Gonna put a little more glue right on this top section here. Then I'm going to take my top section from part 1, make sure it's centered, push it down, and you have yourself a completed passive speaker. Now it's called a passive speaker because there's no electronics. It's just the shape and the design of the speaker that is providing the amplification. So then I can take my phone, I can turn it on. I would wait a minute or two to let that hot glue dry completely before you put your phone in there. Turn it on, put some music on, and then listen to it, and then put it in here and listen to it, and you'll see the significant difference in the sound. It will give you a lot more low end, a lot more bass, and you'll be able to hear it from a further distance, and it will sound great. Okay? So there you go. Completed speaker, ready to go. Enjoy.